Hello and welcome to our lecture today. My name is Mr. Michael Mwangangi, CJL 2301, News Production and Presentation Techniques, Department of Journalism, School of Social Sciences. Our objectives today, we want to understand the criteria for selecting broadcast news. We want to understand preparation processes, or simply process, before setting out to gather news for the broadcast. We want to understand the various sources of news from broadcast. And finally, we will get to understand the various methods of news gathering. So, a brief introduction. Broadcast news are written and presented in a special way because of the nature of the media or the medium. The broadcast media include television, which is usually an audiovisual medium. We have the radio, which is usually an audio-only medium. But of late, we are including the internet because nowadays we are commonly using it to communicate much information. But for today, we'll focus our attention onto these two mediums, the television and radio, mediums of mass communication. Now, we are saying that the way we collect news and present that news might be different from the way we do it for print media, like in the case of newspapers. Why is it so? In the case of broadcast, you realize that we can be able to present that information as the event keeps on unfolding. So we can be at a given location and present or transmit that information directly to the listener or to the viewer at home. So it will not require to delay, like in the case of newspapers. Now, today we start by looking at the criteria that we follow for selecting broadcast stories. In other words, this what we refer to it as the values of news values. So, as we have listed them there, we have timeliness, proximity, human interest, we have conflict, prominence, unusual, information, audiovisual impact, and people. So I want to wish that we get to understand each of these criteria or each of these values of news. Now, as a news reporter or as a news gatherer, you realize that you'll be able to come across so many events. So the question is, how will you be able to determine whether this event is worthy to be reported and broadcasted to our listeners? So that's what our main concern is on this part of our lesson, which is the criteria for selecting broadcast stories. So the first one is the issue of timeliness. Now, we are saying that the broadcast media are the now media. They are instantaneous because as events are occurring, so are they being reported. And for this reason, the broadcast news writer emphasizes timeliness above all criteria. So in short, what we are saying is that when you are selecting a news event so that you can be able to broadcast it, you must first look at when that event took place. If it is happening right now, then that is more important than the event that happened maybe 2 days ago, 3 days ago. So we are saying that because the medium or the media that we are using can be able to report even what is happening in the moment. So what is happening now is so important. So when you are selecting the news items for you to be able to broadcast them, one of the most important thing to consider is the issue of time. Has it happened right now, or did it happen just a few minutes ago, and the like? So that's very important for you to note. Number two, you look at the issue of proximity. Proximity, we also refer to it as the nearness. That is, how close is that event to your target audience, to those people that you want to broadcast this information to. So you realize that what is local, that is what is happening within your village, within your location, your county, your country, is more important than what is happening miles away, probably in a foreign country. So consider that. Moving on, you as well consider human interest. So what do we mean by human interest? These are those issues that people enjoy, or they turn, or rather, we are saying that simply we turn to those news items we find interest in. So we are saying that most of the time you realize that people would want to watch things that they are much interested on. Take, for example, we know that most of the men are interested in watching football, okay? So if you can judge that there is some news information about football, and you know that majority of your audience men, then it will be important for you to pick that, okay? But now you should as well be able to know that not everything that interests everyone, okay? So there are those who are going to be much interested on football, but that sport, maybe that football, is on board to other people. So what you're going to consider is usually the number that you target as far as your target audience is concerned. You ask yourself, will the majority be able to be interested on this kind of a news item? So next is conflict. Next is conflict. And conflict means a kind of a clash, quarrel, disagreement, battle between persons, groups, societies, or countries. It may be political, religious, ethnic, or personal. Now, when we are talking about conflict, these are the differences that you may find different people or factions in the society having. So what will determine whether you're going to report that given event is the level or the magnitude of that conflict. For example, you realize that as we have what we refer to it as the physical conflict, which will be able to result to injury, okay? So you know if people are going to be injured, then you realize that most of the people would want to know what happened. So we have all that. We have a political conflict. Like for example, in our country, you are able to tell that there's a conflict in this party known as Jubilee, whereby we are having those who are supporting the deputy president and those who are supporting the president. So there's a conflict there. So what we are simply saying, go and identify the level or the magnitude of that conflict. So that is what will determine whether you are going to feature that news item within your report or whether you're going to broadcast that. So next is prominence. Prominence simply revolves around the level of a given member in the society, the rank of a given member in the society. Like for example, you realize that the president is more prominent than, for example, MCA. MCA will be more prominent than that other, probably a teacher there, and the like. So you realize that big names usually make news, okay? So we are simply saying that you go and identify whether there is a prominent person within that event. So if there's a prominent person, then that warrants you to be able to pick that story or select that story for your broadcast. Moving on, novelty, or what we refer to it as the unusual, the oddity. So you know that members of the society are used in a certain way, the way things usually happen around that particular society. Okay. Now, anything that goes contrary to the expectation, that is worthy to be reported. So we are saying that novelty means something different, something against the general routine of people, something amazing, something incredible, something astonishing, something unusual. So we are simply saying that if there is anything that goes contrary to what people expect to happen, or that goes contrary to the norm, then that is supposed to be reported. And you pick that and then include that story within your broadcast. Next is information. And on that, the fact that airtime is precious often makes the broadcast news writer emphasize on the what and the where. So you realize that when we are talking about the issue of reporting, for example, that is preparing the news items, we usually insist that we cover the 5 W's, 5 W's and an H. But now we are saying that when it comes to broadcast stories, we are supposed to check whether there is information that we are communicating, and that information we will be able to communicate if we can be able to answer 2 W's, that is what happened, that is the W of what, and where it took place, that is the location. Then later, if you have time, you can be able now to elaborate on why it happened. But in most cases, there's no that time to do that. Next is the audiovisual impact. When we send reporters to the field, they cover the story, and in the process, they are as well going to pick what we refer to it as the news bites. Okay, so if that actuality, when they are reporting from the field where the action is taking place, when we get that clip, and that one is the one that we refer to it as the actuality, and that actuality could be having a very important news bite. That is probably if we are covering a particular politician or a given prominent person, or that given source of information could be giving us information in a fun way, and we can gauge that this information is so important. So if that's the case, then we are saying that you should go ahead and consider including that kind of a story within your broadcast. Now, the next thing to consider when selecting broadcast stories are the people. Now, when we are telling our stories, or when we are gathering our stories, especially for broadcast, we want to give those stories in a human face. We want to show how people are being affected by these given stories. So, as you can see, broadcasts, or rather broadcasting more often attempt to tell the news through people. Broadcasting is generally connected with finding problems, identifying who is at the center of the problem, and knowing how the person is going about solving that problem. So in most of our reports, we usually identify just one person and try to report on what is happening to this particular individual. Okay, if there are floods, we may not go ahead and cover what is happening to all those people, but we are going to single out one particular individual. We find out what has happened to him, what has happened to his source of source of livelihood and alike. So you can see that we can be able now to relate what has happened to this single person to what is happening to maybe hundreds of others within that particular location or area. So we are saying that broadcasting journalists are concerned with people or someone who is affected by the story. Concrete concepts with sound and visuals matter more to the broadcasting journalist. This is why broadcasting is said to humanize the story. Now, preparation is necessary for carrying out these assignments, be they pre-planned events, breaking news or stories reporters originate themselves. Preparation for planned events is easy. So it is so easy for you to be able to prepare or to plan for what you are going to do in the case of the pre-planned events. So you know that, as we said earlier, that within the newsroom there is a news diary or a news book whereby the news editor usually indicates the different events that are going to happen in the near future. So when that time comes, you couldn't be the one who is going to be allocated to go ahead and cover that particular event. So we are saying that in such a case, because the event was known in advance, it will be so easy for you to be able to prepare for it. You'll be able to go to the library, get more information, go to some previous recordings of the same person, so that you can as well be able to know the kind of approach that you are going to approach that particular person. You can still be having time to talk to other journalists, other reporters within your media house to get to understand how that particular person that you are going to meet usually behaves when he meets journalists. Now, for breaking news, reporters are always prepared and anxious to toss out their schedules to track the unexpected event that gives news its reputation as live wire. So you'll not find that all the time you're going to work on something that you know is going to happen in the future. That is something that you know will happen in advance. There could be a building that has collapsed somewhere. There could be an accident that has occurred somewhere. There could be maybe a plane crash, and you are the one who is sent to go ahead and cover that particular news event. So what we are saying is that even if you are sent there, you need as well to be able to be prepared. You need to be having some background information pertaining that particular event. So if you didn't have time to prepare, then you other reporters who are within the media house, they can be able to do some background search or research for you and give you a call and provide you with all that information. Now, a good example of such a case is when we end the Westgate attack, and you realized that different media houses had to send their reporters to cover such kind of, or rather such an event. So these journalists, they did not know that this event was about to take place, okay? They were supposed to rush there and get the information that was unfolding, okay? So they needed to have background information pertaining probably other terrorist attacks within the country. They needed to know, for example, how many people lost their lives during those terrorist attacks that had taken place in our country previously, and all that, okay? So if this person does not have all that information, then he can be able now to request those journalists who have been left in the media house at least to be able to give him much of those factual information pertaining what had happened in the past. So as a matter of necessity too, reporters should always have They are writing materials with them and recorders to take report of the events. So you shouldn't be prepared. So when you are told that there's this emergency kind of a story, then in short, what we are saying is that your gadgets, which are the recorders, your notebook, okay, should always be ready for you to be able to rush to the scene and get that breaking news information, or cover that breaking news story. So there is a repetition of what I've just explained. Be equipped with background information, which is so important. For you to be able to be that much prepared, you can go through the news releases, newspaper of previous reports touching on your assignment and the like. And I said that if you are to rush to the scene and you do not have time to prepare, then you can be able to request those who have been left within the media house to be able to do the search for you and be able to communicate to you via phone. So the last point there, we are saying that preparation pays. It is necessary to be informed before proceeding to become well informed. So for you to be informed, you must have gotten all that information, and that's why, as a journalist, you must make sure that you are updating yourself on what is happening both locally and internationally. So let's look at the methods of news gathering. We have 5 methods of news gathering. We have the on the phone, on the scene, the questioning, preparing a bit, and contacts. So let's start by looking at what usually happens when you are getting information through the phone. So we are saying that telephones are powerful devices in some big and government establishments. Phone numbers are listed, and there are people whose job is to help the place get facts. Now, if you are able to read the next point there, you'll find that you can be able to get so much information through the mobile phone or through the phone. And it is necessary for you to get all those numbers from these major sources of information. For example, these different government establishments or government offices. Why is it so? Because now, suppose that you have been called for a press conference, and you did not get the proper spelling of one of the person's names. What are you going to do? You'll use your mobile phone, give a call, and get clarification for that. You'll be able to use your mobile phone to create a rapport with these people who are a major source of news. So you're going to do that through use of what? Mobile phone. So we are saying that when we are saying that this method of news gathering is so important because it will enable you to fill those gaps that you might be having in your reports. So moving on, the other method is being on the scene. So as a journalist, you realize that a number of times you'll be sent to cover the news from the place where the event is taking place. So when you are there, you're not going to be limited, like in the case of when you are to use the phone. You realize that when you are to use a mobile phone, you are limited just to one sense, which is listening or yelling. And at the same time, you are limited only to getting information from one particular person, okay? But now when you have gone to the scene, you can be able to sense the mood. You can be able to arrange to talk to so many people who are present there. You can as well get information through observation, okay, because you are within the scene of the offend. Moving on, the third method is the questioning. Now, we usually get much of the information through talking to people, and you talk to people by asking them questions. So one thing that you are supposed to know is that if you do not have good questions, then you'll not be able to get all the information that you need. So it is important for you to prepare in advance the different kind of questions that you'll need to be answered, so that you have all the facts that you need for that particular story that you are aiming to get broadcasted. So in most cases, the story that had taken you there to talk to that person might not be the most or the best story that you'll come out there with. There could be some of other stories that are hidden stories, the kind of stories that you are not aware of, but in the process of questioning, the process of interacting with this person through asking him questions, he is likely to mention something that catches your interest, and from there you even leave aside whatever that and brought you there and pursue this new angle that your source has given you. So that will only happen if you keep on asking and asking rewarding questions. So all that. So down there, we are saying that with all this in mind, it is still important for you to remember that the job of a question is to get information, not to prove how much as a reporter you know. So the purpose of you going ahead to get this information through questioning, you are not there to show off, but you are there at least to get some information as a reporter, and you should keep that in your mind. Next is preparing a beat. Now, what do we mean by a beat? A beat is simply that given place and that is a constant source of news. Okay, so examples of a beat can be a police post, because now, like all the crimes that are happening in our country, or rather in a given region that police post covers, they are having records of what has happened, or they are having records of those crimes. The hospitals, if there is any new disease, the people will be able to report it to us. Those who are in that hospital, that is the doctors who are in that hospital, they are the ones who are going to inform us of outbreak of a particular kind of disease. The ports is where the senior or the prominent people in the country either leave the country or where prominent people pass when they are coming in the country. So all these places will be a constant source of information to the media house. And now, to ensure that we get all the stories that are emanating from this place, we usually send a particular journalist to go there and be covering those stories for us. So now, preparing for beat, now that you have understood what it is, we are saying that all reporters have areas for which they are responsible. Since most radio and TV reporters are on general assignment, the area could be as large as Nairobi City, or as small as hospital, a port, a police post, etc. When assigned to an area, reporters have to plan to know certain things. Now there, it's important that once you have been assigned to a given location or a given place, there are a number of things that you are supposed to know about. Remember that your media house will be expecting you to give reports, okay? So how will you ensure that no any given story bypasses you? You'll ensure that you'll be able to do that by ensuring that you know those people who wield power. That is the people who are in charge in that particular location. If, for example, it's the case of the county, you have to know who is the governor in that particular county. If it's a given ward, then you'll have to know who is the MCA. Again, you'll have to know those prominent business people within that given place, and alike. So moving on, a reporter preparing a bit will also want to find out where the relevant public records can be found. If they are covering the courts, those records would include, for example, the calendar of scheduled cases, transcripts of hearings, and all that. So that's important. Covering politics, reporters would want to know the political parties that exist in the state, their various activities, and where their offices are. Okay, so simply what we are saying on now that so that you are supposed to know everything, such that there is no any information that will be able to bypass you. Okay, apart from whatever that we have listed there, you know as well we have the unions. Different workers belong to different unions, and again you should be able to know who are the officials in those unions, so that now they can be able to tell you what they are planning. If there is any strike that they are planning, you should be able to know in advance what are their grievances and alike. So the other method of news gathering is the contacts. And we are saying that something do not get mentioned in news. Some things do not get mentioned in news releases or announced at news conferences. This means reporters need contacts, sources, people who are willing to inform them about happenings. So what we are saying in short is that you should be having your own contacts. You should be able to be having those people who will be able to keep on informing you what is happening. So you get to know what is happening by befriending these people, asking these people questions and alike. So moving on, and which we discuss about the news sources, and we are saying that a source is a person or a document with information the reporter needs for a story or for background. Anyone on the inside of any given news situation is a potential source, but they only turn real sources when they come up with a bit or a lot of relevant information. So sources of news include the physical sources and the human sources. So what are the physical sources? So physical sources consist of records and documents, reference works, and newspaper clippings. They could as well be written sources from the police, the courts, such as traffic offenses, accidents, complaints, arrests, fines, and files. They could as well be from news agencies, like we have some examples that we've given there, Kenya News Agency, Reuters, and alike. So you realize that these physical sources are the most trustworthy sources of information because you have evidence. Okay, when you're looking at a particular document, you know that because it has come from a particular authority and it has been signed, then you can be able to trust that information. Media houses subscribe to news agency or press association services which collect and distribute news to them in return for their subscription. So we have these news agencies, which are a form of an association that is more like a media house itself, that are usually as their own staff reporters. They have their own freelance reporters. They have their own correspondents. So they are able to gather news information in all parts of the country or in different parts of the world. And they edit that information. And from that, they can be able now to forward or to send that information, that is those news, to those media houses that have been able to subscribe with them. We are saying that a news agency services are wire services, which means that only subscribers connect to their services by wire. All cables can receive their transmissions. News releases or news statements, all handout, can as well be a good source of news. Now, different media, or rather different organizations, all those celebrities within the country, they usually want to pass some information to the members of the public. And the way they usually do that is by giving out what we refer to it as an handout. Okay? So this media house will be able to go through that handout, and they will be able now to get all that information that this particular government agency or this particular celebrity or this particular politician would want to communicate to the members of the public. So we are saying that news releases or news statements or handouts are another major source of news to the news broadcaster. The other source is speeches. These speeches are delivered at news conferences and could also be used for news reports. Now, when different companies or different people call for press conference, most of the time they want to let you know what is happening within their companies, what is happening within their political parties. So there is something that they want you to get to know. And apart from you as a media person knowing, they are aiming for you to be able to communicate that to the members of the public. So we are saying that you can get information from speeches that are delivered during press conferences. Next, the internet has also become a fairly good source of news. So we know that internet, within the internet we can be able to get so much information. Different scholars and different researchers, different organizations, they post their materials within the internet, and from their websites we can be able to get all that information that we need. So in conclusion on that, other standard, or rather the last point there, other standard information sources, including dictionaries, encyclopedias, telephone directories, state directories, and biographical references. So in most cases, like when we are talking about state directories and telephone directories, from there you'll be able just to get the number of a particular company or a particular director of a given company. So if there is any news that is happening there, probably there is a new product that they are releasing in the market. If they are researchers, probably they have come up with a cure for COVID-19 or a cure for HIV and AIDS. You realize that if you enter the phone number for maybe the director, the managing director of that particular company or institution, then you will be the first one to be able to get that information, and that will be of much value to you and to your media house. Now we look at the last part, which is now the human sources. And human sources, okay, what we were looking at previously were documents, or what we were referring to it as the physical sources. Now we look at the human sources. Now, human sources, we are saying that in most cases, they will not be so much reliable as a source of news, because most of the time they could be having their own interest in that information that they are giving you. Or sometimes those who are going to be your informant, sometimes they want to just give you that information that they tend to think you want to hear. So they might not be able to give you that much credible information. So the reporter himself is one of those human sources. And this reporter usually approaches different events, ideas, situations, and personalities that make news within his own background knowledge. So as a reporter, you know that you'll be one of the major sources of news within your media house, because now you are the one who will be able to dig out and be able to get news within those places that otherwise will not be thought to be a major source of news. Through the different ideas that you will be coming up with, you'll also identify different personalities who will be able to give you information. So at the end, you are the one who is going to be providing those reports within your media house. The other source is through observation, that this reporter is a major source of news through observation, and observation is usually done on the spot and requires that the reporter be on the scene of the event or situations observed can be planned for, or they may be by chance. So on that point, we had already said that depending on the event, you may realize that we have known the event in advance. We've known that there is this activity that will be happening in 2 days to come, and we allocate a particular reporter to go ahead and cover that. So that reporter can be able to prepare and go there, talk to people who are there, the prominent people who will be gracing the occasion, and alike. So as an observer, reporter usually staffed to cover pre-planned events or breaking news in person. Some events are staffed as a matter of routine, such as legislature sessions, launching, meeting, sporting competitions, and alike. So we are saying that there are those events that we are notified or we get wind of that they are happening. Like, for example, you realize that earlier on we had talked about BITS, and some of these are major source of news, like for example the parliament, whereby laws are passed, laws are amended. So we need our journalists, a particular journalist, to be there to keep on reporting to us what is happening in parliament, which bills have been presented, and alike. Launching meeting, there are different products that could be being launched, so we have to send a reporter. Sporting competition, like for example the World Cup, we have to send our reporters there so that they can be able to cover what will be unfolding during that event. So the last one is personal contact. So oftentimes, reporters are never physically present on the scene of event, and when this happens, reporters rely on persons who were present for first-hand accounts of such events. So you realize that there are so many events that usually happen that amounts to news, and because as a reporter you cannot be everywhere all the time, you realize that you rely on those people, those eyewitnesses who are present when that event took place. So other times you realize that you'll have to make sure that probably Okay, we are saying that the reporter gets facts from these persons through the process of questioning. He or she asks appropriate and probing questions to elicit these facts. So we are saying that because you are not there, then the only way that you'll be able to get those facts is to ask questions to the eyewitness or to the people who witnessed the event take place. So you must be gifted in interviewing so that you can be able to extract that information from these people so that you can be able to provide a comprehensive report to your audience. And that brings us to the end of our lesson. Thank you.
These televised lectures supplement our robust online learning going on our MKU online platform. You can view more on our televised lectures via our online platform. We are in a digital era, and Mount Kenya University knows this. The following are the steps to follow so as to complete your online application. Download the application form from the website www.mku.ac.ke. Attach copies of your academic certificates and ID. Pay the application fees via M-Pesa pay bill number 270988. Your ID is the account number. 2,000 shillings is the charge for a postgraduate. You can also deposit in the bank accounts provided on the website. Then email all the above to apply@mku.ac.ke.